Live from Israel, it's John's place. After a short sabbatical outside the country, we are once again back here in our home country of Israel. Once again, we have with us, after a short break in programming, Mr. Paul Wiener, co-chair of the Likud Anglo Division.
Wow.
Paul, would you like to say hello to everybody?
Hello, everybody. Welcome home, John.
Would you like to wish everybody Shana Tova and Gamar Chatima Tova? We'll get all the greetings out of the way. We wish all our listeners all the best this year.
Shana Tova, everybody.
And may this be the best year ever for you, your family, and the state of Israel.
And the next year, come visit us in Israel.
They're here already, aren't they?
Everybody that's not here.
Okay. Tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen, is going to focus on some of the events that are going on in the Middle East between the President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump, the Palestinian propaganda causes that are going on, and in the background, the support and the advice of our Prime Minister, Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu. UNWRA. The word itself is not a pleasant word. UNWRA stands for the UN Refugee Works Agency. They are responsible for the refugees who were displaced or left voluntarily on the behest of the Arabs who were looking to destroy the newborn state of Israel. So they left.
1948.
46 through 48 is actually the timetable that they say. And at that time, there were 700,000 so-called Palestinian refugees. Now, UNWRA, the Refugee Assistance Agency, counts to their total of refugees at between 5 and 5.5 million. Now, this is about the perpetuation of the refugee cause of the Palestinians for 5 generations now. This is the only situation, by the way, for refugees around the world where they are counted every generation. Now, according to the estimates of either the Palestinians and the Israelis, there are probably approximately 20,000 refugees who are left from the original refugees who fled Israel. But unlike most other history of refugees around the world, there are not 20,000. That would be an issue which would probably be easily solved in the context of the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, where one of the major problems is the right of return, which, by the way, the UN organization of UNWRA helps educate the descendants of the refugees into believing that as long as they live in squalor and poor, depressed, and don't get up and pick themselves up and make something of themselves, they will return to their homes in Tel Aviv, in Haifa, in Beersheba, and all those places. So they live like that because the educational system put out by UNWRA is funding these ideals. Paul?
Yes, and also this is the only agency within the refugee agency that is alone. All the other refugee agencies for all the other countries are under one head in the UN. But we have something special for the Palestinian refugees that do nothing. And nobody ever takes into account there were more refugees from Jewish refugees from Arab countries that came to Israel and made something of themselves. So I'm not saying it's the Palestinians' fault that they're refugees, but they got to get out and make something of themselves. And the Arab nations have to take them in and let them make something of themselves.
Okay, now, up until recent history, the United States was the biggest supplier of money and aid to UNWRA. Over 2/3 of their budget was supplied by the United States. through Republican administrations and Democratic administrations. And as weird as it sounds, there was never any accountability where the money was going. During many of the conflicts between Israel and the Hamas terrorist groups, cover was given to these terrorists where they were able to launch rockets from UNWRA schools and UNWRA medical centers and clinics. Basically, UNWRA employed 95% Palestinians, which many of them were members of the Hamas terrorist group. Now, we happen to have a president in the White House who, not only because he is a friend of Israel, he is a businessman. And he wants to know, what is the United States getting for $650 million a year in support of UNWRA, which underhandedly really is a support staff for the terrorist organizations? Paul?
Well, U.S. is getting nothing. That's why, Trump is cutting it all out. But I don't see anybody in Europe coming up and saying, well, we'll be glad to give more money. I don't see any of the Arab countries saying we'll be glad to give more money. I don't even see the Arab countries taking in any of the Palestinian refugees, which now Trump's putting a little pressure on the Arab countries that, they should start absorbing these refugees if they're,
Many of these 5.5 million refugees live in Jordan. There's several million who are officially refugees. They live in other Arab countries as citizens, and they're still considered refugees. Now, the big problem this
in Jordan, they have a second-rate or third-rate citizenship. It's not a regular.
So they do have refugee camps, though, in Jordan.
They have many. Same thing in Lebanon, but there are many refugee camps. But third, fourth generation, you're no longer a refugee.
Now, why is Donald Trump stopping the flow of money? It's got to do with more of the work of UNWRA, more about how that lack of any desire to have any contact with the United States when Donald Trump, whether he will be able to succeed or not, is looking for the deal of the century when it comes to the Palestinians and the Israelis. And that's what his biggest foreign policy goal is. And the Palestinians don't have any dialogue with the U.S. representatives, yet they expect the United States to continue writing the check because that's what they have been used to. And that's what Abbas has been used to. And I want to also point out some of the things that the President of the United States has done on behalf of Israel besides cutting off the UNWRA situation with their money. Also, President Trump made a promise to move the embassy to Jerusalem, which is common amongst presidents during election time. He is the first president to actually move the embassy in May. He also recently closed the PLO office in Washington, D.C. This was going back and forth for a while with other administrations. The poor brats, the Palestinian terrorists and Abbas, got away with so much since Oslo. For the last 25 years, they never could do wrong. All the UN agencies were coming out and condemning Israel all the way to The Hague and to the International Criminal Court system. Donald Trump said no, but not only as in support of Israel, in support of America, to stop being a laughingstock that you can continue throwing good money after bad. And that's what has happened. And we should be proud. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, behind all this, behind the discussions and the negotiations and determining these actions that the United States has done, Prime Minister Netanyahu was always in consultation. Okay? He supported all these moves. He was behind Donald Trump doing these things. Donald Trump knew it was in the benefit of not only the United States, but in their main and probably best ally in the world, the state of Israel that encouraged him to make those moves. Isn't that true, Paul?
That is true, but you also there's a whole new dimension in the Middle East. You know, the Palestinian issue isn't the big issue. It's not the core issue here. The core issue now is the axis of Iran and the Shiites against the Sunnites, which is Saudi Arabia, Sunnites, yes, which is like Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and these other countries who Israel's getting more involved in. Also, so Trump wants to force the Palestinians to come to the table and make peace, and they don't want to. That's why he's closing up that place in Washington, because that's where we're working out peace. They don't do anything. He's putting pressure on them to do either put up or shut up, and I think it's a great strategy.
And what you brought up with Mr. Trump, I mean, we all know that Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu was against the Iran deal from the get-go. He fought the previous American administration, Mr. Obama and his clowns, not to ratify such a treaty. And guess what? He came and he spoke and he took so much heat from the Democrats in the United States and even from many Jewish leaders for going to the UN, making the speech, telling everybody how terrible it was to make the deal with Iran. He was against it, and yet, with all his protests, Obama and John Kerry and some other clowns went ahead with the deal, even though it was a horrible deal. And now, Israel has an heir in the White House. They have an heir in someone who understands what is going on in the Middle East, though he is a novice in politics, and he knows that the deal with Iran is a disgraceful deal. He knows they are doing everything they want when it comes to nuclear arms. He knows they are exporting terror throughout the Middle East, if not around the world, and he wants to stop them. And he is imposing crushing sanctions. The previous administration worked towards appeasement. I don't know if it was because of the hatred towards Israel by Obama or the lack of being a patriotic American. Him and his wife that never thought good about America till they were nominated for the Democratic Party nomination for president. So which one was it? I think Obama had both things in mind, just like today, Mr. Donald Trump has both the best interest of the United States and the best interest of its strongest ally, the state of Israel.
Well, Obama wanted to create chaos, and he did a very good job at what he wanted to do. But you forget they put up $1.5 billion in cash in a rush on a plane to get to Iran so that they have some money to run their country. And we're talking all about America, but about the Iran deal, but the Europeans were so hungry to make money, they didn't care. Even now, they're trying to fight, Trump about the sanctions and everything, because all they think about is we need more money, the Europeans, and that's all they think about is money.
The European Union is done.
Mark from Chicago would like to know, where did that funding from UNWRA go to? What is it? All the money that the U.S. sends.
Okay.
Most of the money went to all the dignitaries of the PLO. They're all multi-millionaires and billionaires, like Arafat and Ania. They're billionaires.
That's one thought. Mark from Chicago, thank you for listening. The money goes, basically there's a high unemployment rate because there's no infrastructure and no government structure in Gaza and other areas. Plus, Palestinians do not have full rights in many Arab countries. Therefore, they cannot work and earn a living. Plus, according to UNWRA, they educate 750,000 youngsters. The problem is many of these textbooks that have been proven by Palestinian Media Watch and other groups to just spew more and more hatred towards the state of Israel and jihadism and all those other things. So the money goes for that. The money goes for so-called clinics. But ladies and gentlemen, don't be fooled. The corruption of that money goes to support and employ many, many terrorist operators under so-called salaries for different positions. That is where the money goes. There is no accountability. Do you know any American people from the State Department who are willing to go on a little guided tour of Gaza for a couple weeks and investigate where the money was going? I don't think so. So the money goes wherever it goes, like a lot of other money that the United States has distributed to many troubled places. That's why Pakistan will now be losing their $600 million a year, because they've done nothing to help the cause against terrorism. Thank you once again. Anyway, where were we?
Terrorism is a big business.
No, but you brought up a very important point. Iran now is the biggest thorn in the entire Middle East. For the first time, probably in Israel's history, they have a real, true, common enemy that they are willing to work together to solve the issue. And slowly, more of the Arab countries are less and less apt to hide their dealings with Israel. They realize that it's impossible in today's media age of everyone holding a camera that you can do things privately anymore. So Saudi Arabia has no choice. They need Israel. Egypt, strong relations with Israel because they have a common terrorist border that they have to take care of. The Palestinian issue has been on the table for over 50 years, and they don't want to make peace. And the Arab countries are realizing it, that if they ever wanted peace, they could have had it. They've had the opportunities. And they're sick and tired of the crybabies, because there's no such thing as a Palestinian anyway. And they will know that.
But also, you know, the Arabs originally perpetuated this problem, all the Arab countries surrounding Israel that were Sunni. But, you know, things change. You know, the Iranians are not only Persians, but they're also Shiites. And the Arab countries are predominantly Sunni. And they've been natural enemies for the last 1,400 years. And this has never gone away for 1,400 years. Now it's coming out, and Iran wants to dominate not only their immediate area, but the Arab countries and areas also. Like they have an axis of their own. They have Iran, Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon now. That's quite a few countries, and they also have Hamas.
Well, that's only the beginning, really. Their whole goal is to dominate the world.
That's what I said. That's the beginning. Now they want to dominate the Arab countries, and then.
And there's where the
world is, you know, next.
No, and the European Union is getting very nervous because they are going to probably be outnumbered in 2 generations. And all their breaking down of nationalism in Europe is now coming out to haunt them, because the Muslims also love having one nationality throughout Europe. And they will be able to join together taking on the Europeans.
They're doing a good job, and their numbers aren't really that great yet. But I mean, France is gone, England is going.
And how about Sweden? What's going on there? They have the largest population of influx of refugees
they also,
in the last year.
They also went from an extreme leftist government to now what's going to be an extreme right government. The right is
they have not yet formed a coalition.
But the right is won 39%, plus the conservatives won another 14-15%, which brings them over 50%. No.
Hey, we'd like to say hello to one of our very good friends, Sarah, viewing from Jerusalem. Gamar Chatima, Sarah. Always nice to hear from you. We'd also like to say thank you to all our viewers. We'd also like to know a very important fact. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Real News program, okay? Send us your thoughts, send us your questions, send us your comments. We are here to inform you. Paul is an extremely knowledgeable guy. He basically has a doctorate in Israeli studies. Basically, I didn't say actually. Basically has a doctorate. He knows his stuff. I try to learn and keep up on my stuff.
You know yourself.
Don't listen to the fake news. Do not listen to I-24 news either. That is the newest fake news to hit the market. Turn off the channel. Tell your cable subscribers we don't want I-24. Gamar Chatima Tova, sorry. May you all have a great year and a great...
Shana Tova, everybody.
Yes, all the best. Thank you from Israel. Don't worry, no one's listening by then.
No one's listening by then. Especially